I am Aditya Desai. I am from the group that is explaining WebSockets API, and my teammate is Maaz Ahmed and Shengdong Chen. Um, in this tutorial, what we are trying to explain is WebSocket API on the browser with what is API, what is the API, how does it work, why was it required basically, and what are the technical details that goes in, what are the pros and cons, and if there are pros, where can they be used, and if there are cons, where it shouldn't be used, um, and a small demo about it. So starting with it, what is web sockets are basically, it's a TCP protocol, something similar to HTTP, but the main difference between the two is HTTP is you send a request and the server sends you a response back and the connection is over. While in WebSockets, what happens is you send a request to a server, which happens over HTTP, ironically, but this is just a mere handshake between the client and the server. And then, when the handshake is successful, a TCP connection occurs between them. This connection is not a small, short lived connection like HTTP, but a long lasting pipe or a channel between the two. So this connection is live. That is the main difference between HTTP, a traditional HTTP protocol, and a WebSocket protocol. So if you can think, since there is a live connection, it's very good that we don't have to have an overhead of or a tear down of connecting to the server and then disconnecting from the server. So that is a main primary differentiation factor and the advantage over HTTP. While this is again a con, since like how it is always in a two-sided sword. Since the con is, since we have this short long lived, there are resources that are blocked. There is a security aspect around it where the port is always open. But now that is the difference between the two. Where do we apply these? In HTTP, you basically send a request to the server, you get something, you get a response back basically, and that's it. There is no communication further. But when you want to talk to the server again and again and again, and you want a response from the server again and again and again, you want a response from a server without initiating a request, HTTP doesn't fulfill that. So that is where WebSockets come in. WebSockets API is a bidirectional protocol where the server can initiate a communication without the client sending in. Okay, that is the difference between the two. That is the history. So the history is also the similar. It came in picture because people eventually wanted a long lasting connection and everything. So I'll jump into demo part of it basically. So our group or three of us have made a small two demos basically. One demo is a chat, a real-time chat between two browsers, you can say. That will be two clients when the server is hosted on a third-party application where you can connect it via internet or something. Currently it is just hosted in my PC. And the second one is a small multiplayer game. Before briefing into the demo, I just want to say that the WebSockets API is meant for this. It is meant for real-time thing. So when you have a multiplayer game between a lot of people, you cannot communicate with the server again and again communicating. You just keep the channel open. Whenever something hits in, you hit the server broadcasts it to everyone, and still the connection is live because it is so fast. The dynamic is so quick that you cannot have an overhead or a latency where you need to have a teardown. Okay, so I'll first explain how the chat happens because it is a simpler example, and then I'll go into the game part. So WebSocket, before going into demo, let's walk through the code I would suggest. So in WebSockets, what we are using is WS package and node modules for the server. The HTTP server is just to create the thing, nothing much used as such on that. And what happens is when a client connects to the server, basically a WebSocket server is created here. It's created with the HTTP server in the hand. This is required for your connection, the handshake between the initial handshake between the client and the server. Okay, so what exactly is happening is when a client connects to the server, it goes on the on connection mechanism, and then it goes in. What happens is then there are three basic APIs when it connects, when it sends a message, and when it closes itself. So when it connects, so that time it goes in and we have gone ahead. When it sends a message, it is basically like JSON parsing you can think of, but not exactly like that. But to imagine, you can think that it is similar to the message passing, JSON message passing. So it gives a key of message, and then it goes in. Like the server says, oh, it's a message. That means it's gonna process in the message mechanism, and it goes ahead. Okay, and what happens is this business logic about it. Okay, so I'll open the chat. Basically, it's the simpler version. Here you can see I had opened. So the connection happens, the message parsing happens, and that is it. In the start, basically the HTTP server, the server is running on. I'll open the browser now. The server is running on 525 thing. So I'll just open the HTML. Oh, where is the HTML? Yeah, everything and chat. Okay, so this is our one client. Now, as you can see, when the client connects, what is written in here is there is an API in the front end as well. So what happens is when there is init is basically called. So we could try to connect to the server. The connection is open. If I go in the browser to check this, the connection has been opened. Basically, it has sent, the handshake is successful. Now I try to connect one more. Oh, sorry. New window. Yeah, this is much better. Even this has connected to it. Now when I send a hi over here, send message, this what happens is it goes in the backend. It checks, oh, it has an on message, it goes in. The on message, what basically is happening is when I input something, that is on click, it sends this, the WebSocket sends the message to the server. It comes in the backend, it understands, oh, it has got a message. Now in your server, it has clients. Clients is basically all the connected clients that has. Here, since we do not have room culture or something like we have meeting rooms, breakout rooms on Zoom, it is nothing like that. It's a simplistic application. On that, every client we try to connect. The client is basically a web connection. WebSocket connection. This is basically a socket information that is saved by the server. It is required for its own purposes, obviously. So when a client comes in, for that client, we just take the message as is and we stringify it and we just send it ahead. We send it ahead. It is received by the second one, second browser, third browser, whatever. The multiple browser, that's other clients. Oh, then it figures out, oh, there is a message. In the message, we have written a small JavaScript function. Let's just go there. It just goes into the messaging box that is there. This box. We just try to increment it. That is it. There's nothing much fancy written because this is a tutorial that is to be understood. Then we again, coming into the second one, message to send it. It is reflected in the first one. So this now, but however, if I create one more connection, go ahead. The connection is open, but we do not see the messages. That is because it is just basic message parsing that is written. There is nothing that is saved. There is nothing maintained by the server. The server is just there to pass the data to one and another. If that is clear, this is what it is. There are two channels that are present. one sends to the server. Once it got the server receives the message, it goes ahead. That is it. The important part is, if we go and check in the network, there's nothing at all. That is because we do not actually send an HTTP request to the server. The network captures all that information. That is not there. Because we have a live channel with the server that is maintained, that is open. So it is more convenient, it is less tear down. It is even a bit more secure since we do not send it over in the HTTP internet. However, for the server, it's a bit insecure because the ports are open. Even for the client port is open. So if the malicious person knows that there is something like happening like this, then he can hack into the system or try to get the system from the port. So the con of this is you require more security in the server side, you require more security on the front end, but that is it. Now coming to the second application that we have prepared, it's a small game that we have. Okay, let me just open that. Yeah, it's a tic-tac-toe game. You have to enter with a room ID 1 2 3, I say. So I again open a second one, for example. So again it will ask me the same thing. Is it a room ID number 1? Let's just bring this over here. Okay. So this is a player 2, this is my player 1. So X, without even touching this side, my X was had gone over here. That is because in my index.html, the code is a bit more complex, but it is based on the same logic, the same fundamental, that the connection is open. Then when I actually go in, it asks me for the room ID. According to that, it sends the room ID to the backend. When it receives the room in the backend, it tries to see, is the room already present? If the room is present, it just adds the client to the room, and that is it. Otherwise, it creates a room, and the business logic for tic-tac-toe that is implemented, that you can check out in the code. But the main idea was, I just passed, when I click on here, when I click on the, open up please, thank you. When I click on this, sorry. Yeah. When I click add playing piece over here, what I do is I just send the X and Y coordinate. I exactly do not draw it. I just send it to the backend. I send it to the backend. The backend receives it over here. That, oh, it has received it. It goes and finds the client room, and then it sends to both the players in the room what has happened. That is, it propagates, it broadcasts to both the players, which is why even the player 1 and the player 2 both receive it. And then the logic is on send, WS on message. It receives it, and then it draws if it is an X or an Y according to its logic. And then they both get drawn on the same time. So if I give over here and O, it is not exactly drawing it this side. Both of them are getting drawn because the message has passed. Okay, now coming back to player 1. X again, 0 and X. And player 1 wins. That is because the logic is written that way. But the ideology was that it was basic message passing that happened was only 3 letters, like the message M, X and Y, X coordinate and Y coordinate that was passed between the two servers. Those were passed and the game whole worked. The entire logic of drawing and this and that is maintained in the browser. The server is extremely light. So you can think of opportunities, the applications, the scalability of this entire technology, that the server is very lightweight. The browser or the client has a lot of information of actually sending it to the server, and everything is just shown on ahead. So if there is a multiplayer game where a lot of people are playing together, rather than having a server with a heavy capacity to get that many requests, process that, this, draw, render, or everything. Rather than that, we can have very heavy built-in clients which send simplistic data to the server, which the server obviously parses, massages, and sends it ahead. But the server doesn't do much work. So this technology is useful for such purposes where you want to talk between multiple clients, the real-time chat is there, you want to code simultaneously, you want to draw or play games in multiplayer mode. The technology helps us a lot. So giving a very small and brief demo was our aim of this project, of this entire WebSockets application. I hope you guys understood it. There are more API on it, how to do it. We implore you to check it out. You can even, I'll just give you a small example as well, since I'm here already. Yeah. So now, even in close, I just close the socket. If I get a message from that, oh, the socket has been closed from the server. Even in the front end, I just close it, and that is it. That is how my WebSocket is killed. That is how simple it is. So it's very simple technology, but very large applications. So there are a lot of APIs, basically 1, 2, and 3 APIs in the front end and in the back end. And then the applications are limitless. So I implore you to check it out. What we have done is on Node.js. There are similar libraries on Flask. There are similar libraries on other things. On browser, there is even Socket.io for Node.js, which is an application of it. There is other applications. You can check it out in our report. There are there. And that's it. Thank you from Aditya Desai, Maaz Ahmed, and Shengdong Chen. Thank you.